There is a moment that most people never notice. It lasts less than a second. It happens between the time someone hurts you and the time you respond. It is so short, so quiet, that most of us pass right through it without ever knowing it was there. But that tiny invisible moment, that small silent gap, is the most powerful place you will ever stand in your entire life. Because inside that gap lives your freedom. Inside that gap lives your peace. And if you learn to live there, nothing in this world will ever own you again. I want to talk to you today about something that sounds simple but changes everything. I want to talk about what you carry, not what others do to you. Not the words that were said, not the people who left, not the situations that broke your heart. I want to talk about what you chose to pick up after all of that happened. Because here's the truth that most people are never told. The event ends, but the weight you assign to it does not have to. You get to decide. You have always had that choice. You just may not have known it yet. Let me tell you about a man I have been thinking about for a long time. His name does not matter, because in many ways his name is all of ours. He grew up in a small town, in a house full of loud voices. From the time he was very young, he learned that the world was a place where people said hard things and you either fought back or you broke. He chose to fight back. It felt like strength. It looked like confidence. People called him intense, passionate, full of fire. But inside, quietly, every single day, he was filling up. Not with fire, with stones. Every argument that did not go his way became a stone. Every time someone dismissed his idea to work, he picked up a stone. Every time a friend forgot to call back, every time a stranger was rude in traffic, every time someone questioned his ability, every time a relationship ended without the explanation he deserved. Stone, 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 stone. He carried them all. He told himself they made him stronger. He told himself that remembering them kept him sharp, kept him protected, kept him from being fooled again. But one morning he woke up and could not get out of bed, not because he was sick, not because he was tired, but because the weight of everything he was carrying had become so enormous, so quietly crushing, that just the idea of walking through another day felt impossible. That is what happens when we carry too much for too long. It does not announce itself. It does not come all at once. It comes slowly, the way a river carves a canyon, not with one violent rush of water, but with the patient, persistent, daily wearing away of stone. And one day you look in the mirror and you do not recognize the person looking back, not because something terrible happened yesterday, but because of everything you chose to hold on to for years and years and years. Now, I want to be careful here, because I know that someone listening to me right now is thinking, but the things that hurt me were real. The betrayal was real. The abandonment was real. The injustice was real. And you are right. I am not standing here asking you to pretend those things did not happen. I am not asking you to smile over your wounds or dress your pain in pretty words. What happened to you was real. Your feelings about it are real. The grief, the anger, the confusion, all of it is real and all of it deserves to be felt. But there is a difference between feeling something and making it your permanent address. There is a difference between being wounded and choosing to live inside the wound forever. Think about the last time someone said something harsh to you. Maybe it was a colleague who undermined you in a meeting. Maybe it was a family member who brought up something from your past in a way that stung. Maybe it was a stranger online who said something cruel with no reason, no context, no consideration for the human being on the other side of the screen. Think about that moment. Think about how it felt in your chest, that tightening, that heat, that sudden small collapse inside you. Now ask yourself this question honestly. When that moment ended, when that person walked away or closed the laptop or moved on with their day, did they take the feeling with them? Or did they leave it entirely with you? In almost every case, the answer is the same. They moved on. They had lunch. They laughed at something. They went to sleep without thinking of you at all. And you were still there with the weight of what they said sitting on your chest like something physical. You were replaying the conversation. You were building the argument you should have made. You were imagining all the things you would say if you had the chance. You were lying awake at 2 a.m. giving enormous power to someone who was not even thinking about you. And nobody told you to do this. Nobody forced you. You chose it. We all choose it because we think that holding on to something is somehow a form of justice. We think that releasing it means letting them win. But here is what I need you to understand. Holding on to pain does not punish the person who caused it. It only punishes you. When you carry a stone that someone else threw, you are doing their work for them. You are extending their moment of cruelty far beyond its natural life. You are taking something that was meant to last a second and turning it into a year, a decade, a lifetime. The person who hurt you threw the stone and kept walking. You picked it up and built a house out of it and moved in. There was once a woman who had not spoken to her sister in 11 years. The original argument, and she could still describe it in perfect detail, lasted 40 minutes. 40 minutes of harsh words between two people who had been close their whole lives. And then 11 years of silence. 11 years of family gatherings where one sat on one side of the room and the other sat far away. 11 years of their mother quietly crying at Christmas. 11 years of two women carrying the weight of one 40-minute conversation. When someone finally asked her if she remembered exactly what the argument was about, she paused for a long time. And then she said honestly that she could not quite recall the original thing anymore. She remembered the feeling. She remembered being dismissed, being unheard. But the specific words, the specific moment, it had blurred. And yet for 11 years she had been carrying the stone of it every single day. That is the nature of what we hold on to. Over time, we often forget the details. We only keep the wound. We only keep the weight. The original moment dissolves, but the scar tissue remains, and we keep protecting it, keep feeding it, keep choosing it every morning when we wake up and decide today is another day I will not forgive. I am not telling you forgiveness is easy. I would never insult you that way. Forgiveness might be one of the hardest things a human being can do. Because real forgiveness is not about the other person at all. It is not a gift you give to someone who hurt you. It is not something they deserve or do not deserve. Forgiveness is the decision you make for yourself, to stop allowing what happened to have ongoing power over your life. It is the moment you say, I will not keep building my identity around this wound. I will not let this thing that happened in my past write the story of my future. And the beautiful, strange thing is that when you genuinely release something, not suppress it, not pretend it away, but truly release it, you do not become weaker. You become lighter. You become more yourself. Because all of that energy you were using to carry the weight, all of that mental space, all of that emotional vigilance, all of that quiet background noise, it becomes available to you again. You get it back. And suddenly the world, which had seemed gray and exhausting, begins to have color again. Think about what it feels like after a long rain. The air is different. Everything is cleaner, quieter, more still. There is a particular quality to that silence after a storm that is unlike any other silence. That is what release feels like inside you. Not emptiness, not numbness, a kind of open, clean breathing space where the weight used to be. Now I want to talk about reactions, because this is where everything gets practical. This is where the real work happens. We often think that how we react to things is just our personality, that some people are patient and some people are hot-tempered, and that is simply how they were made. But this is not true. Your reactions are habits, and habits by their nature can be changed. A reaction is just a pattern that has been repeated so many times that it begins to feel automatic, begins to feel like nature, begins to feel like you. But it is not you. It is a behavior you learned, often very young, in response to an environment that no longer exists. Many of us learned our emotional patterns in childhood. We learned that crying was a sign of weakness, so we stopped crying and started getting angry instead. We learned that speaking up led to punishment, so we went quiet and started harboring resentment. We learned that love was unpredictable, so we armored ourselves and called it self-sufficiency. These patterns made sense once. They were survival strategies. They helped us navigate an environment we could not control. But we grew up. The environment changed, and we forgot to update our responses. We are still using a strategy designed for a child in a household that no longer exists, in situations that have nothing to do with that original wound. And we wonder why our reactions feel disproportionate. We wonder why a small slight from a coworker sends us into a rage that lasts 3 days. It is not about the coworker. It never really was. The practice of pausing, of finding that tiny gap between stimulus and response, is really the practice of growing up emotionally. It is the practice of saying, I do not have to respond the way I always have. I am not 7 years old anymore. I am not trapped. I have choices I did not have then. And the more you practice that pause, the wider it becomes. What starts as a fraction of a second can grow into a full breath. A full breath can grow into a moment of genuine reflection. And in that moment of reflection, you can ask yourself the most important question. Is my reaction right now going to help me or hurt me? Is this response building my life or tearing it down? I want to be honest with you about something. There will be days when you pick up a stone even when you know better. There will be days when someone pushes exactly the right button and all of your practice disappears and you react the old way. Hot, fast, uncontrolled, and afterward you sit with the familiar shame of having been swept away again. Those days will come, and on those days I want you to remember something important. The goal is not to become someone who never feels. The goal is not to be a monk untouched by the world. You are a human being. You are allowed to feel everything. You are allowed to be angry and hurt and confused and overwhelmed. The practice is not about eliminating those feelings. The practice is about not letting the feeling make permanent decisions on your behalf. Feel the anger. Do not send the message. Feel the hurt. Do not say the words you cannot take back. Feel the frustration. Do not make the choice you will regret for years. Let the feeling move through you like a wave, fully, completely without suppression, and then watch it recede, because it will always recede. Every emotion, no matter how enormous it feels in the moment, is temporary. The wave always passes. The question is only whether you made decisions while it was still crashing. There is a kind of quiet strength that most people never develop because they are too busy performing strength. Real strength is not the person who never shows pain. Real strength is the person who feels the full force of something difficult and still chooses how to respond. Real strength is the pause. Real strength is the breath. Real strength is the woman in the difficult meeting who feels her face getting hot and still chooses her words with care. Real strength is the man who receives a message that breaks his heart and waits until the wave has passed before he decides what to say. This is not weakness. This is not passivity. This is mastery. This is the kind of mastery that takes years to build and changes absolutely everything. I think about the people in my own life who I have most admired not for their success, not for their achievements, but for the way they moved through the world. They had something in common. Not that nothing ever hurt them. Not that they were never betrayed or disappointed or challenged. That they seemed to have a kind of inner room, a quiet place inside themselves that the noise of the world could not reach. No matter what was happening around them, they could always find their way back to that room, back to their own stillness, back to themselves. And from that place, they made choices, calm, clear, considered choices that almost always turned out to be right, not because they were smarter, not because they were lucky, but because they were not making decisions from the middle of a storm. You can build that room. It is not a gift some people are born with and others are not. It is a practice. It is built one small decision at a time. Every time you choose not to pick up a stone, you add a brick to that room. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you let a wave pass before you speak, every time you release something that was never really yours to carry, you build that quiet place inside yourself. And over time, brick by quiet brick, you have somewhere to go. You have somewhere to return to. And from that place, your whole life begins to look and feel different. Before I leave you tonight, I want to offer you something small, not a solution, not a formula, just a practice. Tonight, before you sleep, I want you to sit somewhere still for just a few minutes. Place your hand gently on your chest and think, without judgment, of one thing you are still carrying from this week. Maybe it is something someone said that is still sitting wrong. Maybe it is a situation that did not go the way you hoped. Maybe it is something older, a wound you have been carrying so long that you have almost forgotten what life felt like before it was there. Just one thing. Hold it in your awareness like you are holding it in your palm. Look at it honestly. Acknowledge that it is real, that it mattered, that it hurt. And then, slowly, deliberately, choose to sesh it down. Not because it deserves to be forgotten, not because it was not real, but because you deserve to be free. Say that to yourself quietly. I deserve to be free of this, and breathe out. Long and slow, and imagine the weight of it leaving your body with the breath. Do this every night. It will not fix everything at once. It is not meant to. It is a practice, and practices are built slowly, the way anything worth having is built slowly. But over days and weeks you will begin to notice something. Your sleep will be different. Your mornings will feel less heavy. The world will begin to soften at the edges in a way you cannot quite explain. Because you will be carrying less, and when you carry less, you see more. You feel more of what is actually good. You are more present for the people who love you. You are more open to the moments that are trying to reach you. You become, quietly, more yourself. You cannot control what people throw at you. You cannot control the words, the betrayals, the disappointments, the small daily cruelties that just seem to be part of being alive. But you can control what you pick up. You can control what you choose to carry through the door at night. You can control what you place on the ground and leave there, in the past where it belongs, and walk forward without it. That is your power, not your anger, not your armor, not your ability to outlast or outfight or outargue. Your power is your ability to stay whole when the world tries to break you into pieces. Your power is your quiet. Your power is your peace. Protect it like it is the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Until the next story, walk lightly, choose wisely, and remember that the greatest weight you will ever set down is the one you have been carrying by choice.